When you review animation for as long as I have, you start to notice just how unfair the industry can be. No matter how great a cartoon is, nor the potential it has, many amazing shows fall victim to circumstances beyond their control. Of course, we have some very recent examples, such as the HBO Max and Netflix cancellations, but this sort of treatment has happened far too often, such as Steven Universe and Owl House getting canceled for risky themes, or Symbiotic Titans and Thundercats because of their low toy sales. Even shows that have gotten recent revivals were victim to these unfortunate cancellations. But the show we'll be talking about today didn't even get a chance to prove its worth. And that show was Mission Hill. This show is one of the more interesting examples of this situation because it only released 2 episodes before the show was canceled. Kinda. At the time, it wasn't an official cancellation, yet it basically was. The term they coined for this was a hiatus, because the show would return a year later to air more episodes. The thing is, the show only produced 13 of the contracted 18 episodes. And when the show went to air the remaining episodes, Warner Brothers did next to nothing to actually promote the show. This made it clear that they had no faith in it at all, and were just airing the rest of the episodes because they had already spent the money to make them. This makes Mission Hill a very unique case. It's not super common that animated shows get canceled after just an episode or 2. It's especially weird by today's standards, when shows are now getting several seasons ordered off the bat. Like how Velma was ordered with 2 seasons from the get-go. Oh, and don't even get me started on Rick and Morty, who in 2018 got a contract to produce 70 episodes, 70, which lasts until season 10 in 2026. Even Clone High, which was canceled after its first season, was picked up by HBO Max with a new 2-season contract. And much like how Clone High was revived due to its massive online interest, it appears that Mission Hill lives on in the same way. Clips of the show getting spread across YouTube has helped Mission Hill gain a cult following of its own. And this is, in fact, how I got my interest in Mission Hill. After all, seeing these clips out of context really makes you want to seek out the source material.
Pass me the beans, Weirdy.
What did you say?
I meant where the beans at, Weirdy? Beans at. Weirdy beans at.
New condoms? What's wrong with our regular brand of condoms?
Nothing, but these were on special, that's all.
You cheap gay bastard! These things are gonna fly right off!
Crazy world, huh? Well, don't let it get you down, son. Penis, 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 penis.
But what is the show actually about? Well, the show was centered around encapsulating the time of which it was created, the late 90s, with the show focusing on teens and 20-somethings going through the everyday challenges of life. In particular, the show follows the story of Andy French, whose little brother, Kevin, unexpectedly moved in with him. This leads to all sorts of hijinks, as the two are now more involved in each other's personal life. On the surface, this could have easily turned out very bad. When you compare the content of the show to other adult comedies today, you can notice a lot of similar themes. Preachy activists, stereotypical gay characters, wacky animals, and tons of drinking and drugs. But what sets Mission Hill apart from the rest is its brilliant execution. This is, by every means, a very cleverly written show. The plots are anything but predictable. In one episode, we have Kevin trying to date a girl just so he could get a college recommendation from her father, but the father ends up passing away, forcing Kevin to break into a military base to steal the letter. In another episode, we see the character Posey going on a spiritual journey. And at the end, we see the very embodiment of eternal peace and tranquility. I'm not going to spoil it here, but it is an amazing payoff to this whole episode. Also, this particular plot highlights just what's so amazing about the show's comedy. Throughout the episodes, you have your standard jokes and observational humor. But There are many jokes here that I feel like the writers are trying to play 4D chess with you. I won't go into much more depth with that, because jokes aren't as funny when you have to explain them. In one episode, we see Andy's brother, Kevin, walk past an adult theater, specifically promoting X-rated films. After some back and forth, Kevin decides to try and sneak into the theater without anyone realizing he's underaged. Unfortunately, he comes across his neighbor at the theater, believing that he's about to be ratted out. After all of this buildup, it's revealed that the theater is actually a classical theater, playing movies from all across film history. The particular movie Kevin saw was made in the early 70s, back when the X rating was in the place of the R rating. So it was a complete misunderstanding based on an outdated film terminology. Between the setup and the payoff, this was a brilliant scene. And it's not the best example of the show setting up these jokes, but it was just to give you an idea of how the show was written at the time. And thanks to the mix of brilliant writing and humor, we were given the strongest aspect of Mission Hill: the characters. Whether it's the main characters, the side characters, or even the minor background characters. This show does an amazing job bringing this world to life, partly because of the writing, but also because of the voice talent. Unsurprisingly, Mission Hill actually reuses a ton of their voice cast to play other characters in the show, but the thing is, they couldn't possibly have picked a better cast for this. Wallace Longa, Scott Minville, Brian Posehn, Vicky Lewis and Nick Jameson all basically run the show with very few other voices. And while, yeah, it's noticeable, they are just such a fun cast that you don't really mind it. But we can't forget about who really carried this show. The legend himself? Tom Kenny. Of course, nowadays he's far more popular. But back when he recorded for Mission Hill, he had only started recording for the first season of SpongeBob. Yet, they let Tom Kenny voice nearly every background character in the show, alongside one of the main side characters, Wally, which actually brings us to yet another big highlight of the show. The characters, Wally and Gus. No doubt, if you've seen anything about Mission Hill, it's guaranteed to be one of their scenes.
These were on special, that's all.
You cheap gay bastard! These things are gonna fly right off!
Who else is great? You big homo!
That is a hurtful term. Please stop using it, or I will be forced to clobber you.
Yeah, don't fuss over it.
Don't fuss. We've got to get you to a hospital.
Go to a hospital, doctors always find something wrong with you.
These two are a happily married gay couple, and to this day they are undeniably the best gay couple in any animated show. Of course, we do get some jokes involving them, but that's not all they are. I mean, the first episode practically opens up with them kissing, something that's still hard to get through on shows today. Throughout the 13 episodes that aired, they appear in nearly every one of them, and they got side plots in at least 2. And the last episode of the show that aired actually focused entirely on the two and how they got into their relationship, which in a way is probably the best way for the show to have gone out under its circumstances. And while these two definitely steal the show in some regard, just like how they stole the focus of the script, the other characters are nothing to sleep on. There's Jim, Andy's friend and by far the chillest person you'll ever meet. Paisley is another one of the roommates at the loft, and she's just a very interesting character based on her mannerisms alone. She's just so nervous and closed off, but at the same time she can get very excited and outgoing. You never really know what to expect from her, so it's always an entertaining time when she shows up in an episode.
And what does he represent? Oh, that's just Frankenstein. Nobody really knows what he's doing up here.
I've never been depressed like this before.
Well, welcome to the real world, sucker. Where you go? That wolf is attacking my plant.
There's also Kevin, who on paper should be a very annoying character. He's very nerdy, egotistical, pampered, and an absolute know-it-all square. But what makes him work so well is how humbled he gets through his experiences while living with his brother. In one episode, we see Kevin act like a brat because his birthday was ruined. But then we see him just kind of realize he's growing out of them, and by the end we see the brothers hanging out at their old home, which is enough of a birthday for Kevin. Because the character was so petty at the beginning, it made the ending of this episode so much sweeter. The show doesn't focus an awful lot on Kevin, as Andy is the main character, but when it does, it's not a bad time. Even the minor background characters in the show are amazing, and because of them, it helps the show feel like it actually takes place in a real city where everyone is living their own lives. The show doesn't just revolve around the main cast, they are just a part of this world. The last thing I'd like to touch on here is the show's art style. As you've been watching this video, you probably took notice of the show's very vibrant colors. Well, Mission Hill was one of the last shows to utilize hand-painted animation cells. And because of this, they were on set using very vibrant paints for the animation. The show's aesthetic was also inspired by another show airing around the same time, called The Simpsons. See, the reason why The Simpsons characters are yellow is because the creator wanted the show to be eye-catching. That way, when people would flip through channels, they'd immediately catch The Simpsons just from a quick glance. Mission Hill's unique color palettes was used for this reason as well, and before I ever learned this fact, I can vouch that the show's approach had worked. I hadn't started watching the show till very recently, but I've seen the show being talked about online for years, and I could easily spot the show's look from a mile away. I never had an issue confusing it with any other show. When you look at everything, this show did so right. It just really hurts that it was never given an actual chance to gain an audience when it aired. It's crazy to expect a brand new show with minimal advertising to pull in a large crowd of viewers in just 2 episodes. An even bigger crime is that season 1 never even got to finish. But there is a silver lining here, as some episodes that were never animated actually had their full animatics revealed, along with the original cast live reading the script. But this does raise the question, if Mission Hill never even finished its first season, and there's definitely no chance of a revival, is it worth watching? And to that question, ladies and gentlemen, I say it absolutely is. It's been a while since I've had as much fun of a time watching a show as I did Mission Hill. My only problem is that I got a little, too invested in the characters when watching it. Like at the time, I didn't realize there was only 1 season, so I got my hopes up a bit too high about, certain characters returning or future plot points for episodes. So, after I learned about the show's fate, it did make me feel a bit disheartened. But that doesn't take away the enjoyment I got from watching it. It's a very special show, with a lot of passion put into it, and I just want to do my part to spread the word about it. So, if you got nothing better to do, then I highly recommend you give this show a watch. Unfortunately, the show isn't available on any streaming service that I could find at the moment. However, full episodes of it are posted all over YouTube, so if they aren't going to give us an official way to watch it, then these are just going to have to do. And with that, we thank you for watching yet another Nitro Reviews. Be sure to subscribe, as that helps support the content we make, and we'll see you in the next review.